Mr. Kebede, at your consultation meeting, you discussed the benefits that may flow from public recognition of the experience of diaspora communities. Please share and discuss your views.
Thank you. Imagine not knowing if your family is alive for over 2 years, all because a brutal war is raging in your homeland. This was the reality for millions in Tigray. To provide context, Tigray is a northern province in Ethiopia with about 7 million people. The war arose from a failure to establish a new political arrangement between the Tigray People's Liberation Front and the Prosperity Party, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. This conflict, which lasted from November 2022 to November 2022, has been described as a genocide, yet it struggles for recognition. During this period, Tigray was under a complete siege, with media blackouts and a government-imposed blockade on internet and telephone services, one of the longest in global history. Essential utilities, commercial trade, food aid, and banking services were also cut off. Families in the diaspora were left in the dark, unable to contact loved ones to check on their safety. Journalists attempting to report on the situation faced harassment, expulsion, imprisonment, or death. Despite these draconian measures, information still leaked. Bodies began washing up in Sudan from the Takizi River and Western Tigray, and refugees fled to share their horror stories. A few brave souls risked their lives to smuggle information and recorded media into the neighboring areas where communication was possible. It was through these limited pieces of information that we came to know the tip of the iceberg, a catastrophe and a genocide in the order of magnitude of the Rwanda genocide, if not more. The Ethiopian and Eritrean governments launched extensive propaganda campaigns, making it difficult for people to grasp the true extent of the crisis. As a result, the international community remained largely unaware. In response, Tigrayan diaspora communities across Canada organized mass protests in cities like Toronto and Ottawa. We protested in front of the Parliament, the US Embassy, major media outlets, and provincial municipal buildings, seeking to raise awareness and garner support. However, local media largely ignored our efforts. Our protests were met with counter-narratives from the Ethiopian government and its sympathizers, complicating the struggle to convey the realities on the ground. Media outlets found it challenging to discern the truths, as they were often unable to access the region themselves. The government of Ethiopia and Eritrea had immense resources and access to lobbyists and the international institutions. Despite our tireless advocacy, we felt helpless and frustrated by the lack of attention from the Canadian public and major news organizations, especially in light of the enormity of the crisis. The Tigray War has resulted in over 1 million civilian deaths, primarily due to the brutal siege and targeted massacres. The Ethiopian government led the conflict, supported by Eritrean soldiers and Amhara paramilitary groups, with an estimated 1 million combatants involved. The war has led to the sexual assault of over 200,000 women and girls, often tortured in gruesome ways by gangs. It has also led to the destruction of more than 90% of schools, hospitals, as well as factories, water supply, civic buildings with essential public records. Currently, over 40% of Tigray remains under occupation by the same forces responsible for these atrocities, hindering justice and the return of displaced persons. There are over 1 million internally displaced people in Tigray, and more than 70,000 refugees have fled to Sudan, where they face further violence. Many have attempted dangerous journeys to South Sudan, Uganda, and Libya, often falling victim to human trafficking and perilous conditions. A small number have arrived in Canada, particularly in Toronto, but they lack adequate support to address the mental trauma and resettle effectively. My youngest brother is among those still in Libya. highlighting the ongoing struggles faced by our community. Compared the conflicts in Ukraine and Israel, the Tigray War has resulted in excuse me. Thank you. Compared the conflicts in Ukraine or Israel, the Tigray War has resulted in far more casualties and urgent needs. Yet it has received minimal media coverage. This lack of awareness significantly hinders our ability to raise funds for recovery efforts and support refugees in both in Tigray and within Canada. As a small community, we face overwhelming requests for assistance, with nearly every member having lost a loved one or supporting relatives in Tigray. Despite our efforts, the scale of the need far exceeds our capacity. Many Canadians, including charitable organizations, remain unaware of the situation in Tigray, making it challenging to secure the necessary support. This gap in public knowledge has hindered our ability to galvanize broader assistance and apply pressure on the Canadian government for humanitarian aid. Increased aid and recognition could alleviate the mental and financial burdens our community faces daily, stretching our limited resources even thinner. Many individuals have lost jobs, marriages have ended due to the stress of feeling unheard while trying to raise awareness. Some community members have taken on multiple jobs and relied on personal credit lines to send assistance, while low-income individuals, desperate to save their relatives or childhood friends, struggle to contribute as they once did. Unfortunately, some in our community have turned to unhealthy coping mechanisms in response to the dismissal of our genocide. This collective trauma has added an overwhelming layer of stress affecting our overall well-being. Thank you.